What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Will and Rock MMA podcast.
What's going on, everybody? I want to clarify a couple of things before we get started with the podcast. There's been a lot of people who want us to interview fighters. There's been federations who actually want us to, up-and-coming federations that want us to actually interview fighters. And we are thinking about that. We just want to get a better studio and set up so we can really pursue and start interviewing people who I feel like need some sort of limelight.
Even if we were to do it on Skype, even if we would do it to have people even come to our studio now and interview them, it's not a bad idea. But let's just try to get everything. We got some work to do.
But just so people who continue to DM us and tell us stuff, it's going to happen. We definitely that's the future for this podcast. It's not just having me and him rant every single time. It's actually getting people here and starting promoting either up-and-coming federations or up-and-coming fighters.
Ideally, yeah, I agree with you.
Ideally, that would be the ideal situation.
All right, guys, so it's coming.
Definitely coming. Just wanted to run a couple of rumors and some fights that have been set up. We have Jessica Ai versus Valentina Shevchenko.
Yeah.
It's a rumor fight. There's not really a home for it yet,
right?
Or a date set, which I think is going to be a phenomenal fight.
Yeah.
No matter how you see it at this point. Okay.
I wouldn't say. So Jessica Ai just won her last fight in Brooklyn. Her performance was well enough where she asked for the title. She's won 4 in a row. So Dana White then after that in the press conference said Jessica Ai would have the next title fight against Valentina Shevchenko. The honest truth is that I don't think that nobody stands a chance with Valentina Shevchenko, at least in her weight class. Whoever comes closest would have. I would consider it to be Jessica Ai, just like probably Dana White probably thought it was. However, I mean, we'll talk more into it once the day comes, but I just don't see anybody taking Valentina Shevchenko, to be honest.
I agree, and I've always been a big advocate for her because I do feel like she beat Amanda Nunes in that big fight, and they still gave it to Nunes, but what Nunes did was just unforgettable and unbelievable. So absolutely. I can see why someone like her deserves the title. But I do agree with you, man. She is so well rounded. She's going to be hard to beat her, whoever it is.
I agree with you, man.
Curtis Blaydes versus Justin Will is set for UFC Fight Night 148 on March 23rd.
Yeah. I believe is a really good heavyweight bout. You figured Will is coming off his last win against Mark Hunt. And then, if I'm not mistaken, Blaydes, his last fight, he ended up losing.
He got knocked out by Francis Gano. And that was somewhat of an early stoppage, remember?
Right. Versus Francis Gano. I think it's good for Willis. I think it's a good fight that to put a guy like Blaydes. However, I believe Blaydes might have the upper hand, better wrestling skills, but I guess we'll talk about it when the time comes as well. But a really good heavyweight match because they're fresh faces into the UFC. They're younger guys too. Normally we used to seeing older people fight in a heavyweight division. So it's good to see new faces in the heavyweight division.
So first of all, I gotta agree with you 100%. I think it's a good fight for both fighters when you have someone like Willis who just beat a legend like Mark Hunt and in his own game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he stood and banged with him, and his footwork for somebody his size, his footwork, his hand speed,
amazing.
I was really impressed. And then you got someone like Curtis Blaydes, who was one fight away from going for that title had he beat Francis Gano.
Yeah.
So there's so much riding on both of these guys, and I'm glad for Curtis Blaydes got a little bump on the road to like wake him up and say, listen, yeah, you're good, but these are the monsters you're dealing with in this federation, So I was really happy for Curtis to actually accept a fight like this for him as well, Looking forward to that fight. Then on ESPN 3, April 27th, we have a fight that I think we've both been looking for. We got the veteran Joel Romero versus Paulo Costa. I think this fight is fireworks no matter how you see it. This is going to be a stand and bang, or this is going to be Romero realizing, listen, I'm 41 years old. I'm starting to like really get. You're not going to see the 100% of me as you usually do. He's coming off a lot of injuries as well.
Yeah.
Wrestle's going to be key for Romero if he really wants his victory, or not. I mean, the thing about Paulo Costa is the things that we've realized about Paulo Costa is not only is he's so young to the sport that he's able to take a lot of punishment.
Yeah.
We saw him when he fought his last fight. He took a ton of punishment and still found a way to win. It's going to be interesting. I'm really looking forward to this fight.
I agree with you 100% as far as, a good matchup for both fighters. I feel like Acosta coming up, right? And then Joel Romero, who's been performing pretty well so far. I mean, he is 41 years old. He's an older guy in his weight class.
He doesn't fucking look 41.
He definitely doesn't look 41. He hasn't been fighting his age either. He looks very good at 41. I believe that with a victory over Acosta, he would definitely get a title shot, whether with Whitaker or with Kevin Gastelum. Okay. But then again, Acosta is the same exact thing. I believe these are two of the best in their weight class, and whoever wins should get a title shot. But as far as these two getting into the octagon, I really cannot think of a better stylistic fight between both of them. I can't pick one. I'm having a hard time trying to see who has the upper hand or who doesn't. Great stand-up fighters. I'm just wondering whether, back to what you're saying, Joel Romero is going to wrestle Acosta. Is up in the air. I'm looking forward to that fight. Really good fight.
Couldn't agree with you more. And then our man John Fitch is taking on Rory McDonald on April 27th. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that fight is in somewhere in California. I think it's Sacramento. I haven't really confirmed that. I feel like this fight is going to be a grind to the finish. And the reason behind it, I think John Fitch, it doesn't benefit John Fitch to stand and bank with someone like Rory McDonald. Rory McDonald is known to go into wars. And John Fitch is known to go into wars, but George Fitch needs to really figure out how he's going to grind someone like Rory McDonald. Just when people count Rory McDonald out, he finds a way to pull up massive victories, big victories, and in the most brutal and disgusting way possible by having his face bashed in before he decides to wake up and win fights. So these two fighters going at each other, I think it's a great feeling for someone like John Fitch. And by the way, this is a welterweight prix as well.
The Grand Prix, right?
The Grand Prix
for the welterweight in Bellator.
And someone like John Fitch who's been in the sport for so many years, is like, oh man, like, we're gonna get this guy back in the spotlight. Can we give him a title? Like this is again possible for someone like John Fitch.
Yeah. Back to what you're saying, I don't believe John Fitch should obviously go in there and bang with a guy like Rory McDonald, who has better handwork and better foot movement. I believe that John Fitch should go in there and do exactly what he's been doing throughout his whole career. One of the greatest wrestlers in both
underrated wrestlers.
Underrated, but definitely one of the best wrestlers in MMA in general. Like, he was known for grabbing you, taking you down on the floor. Not the most exciting fighter in MMA, and it's the reason why he got dropped out of UFC, because UFC did not want him, although he had like 11 wins in a row or something like that. But going into this fight against Rory McDonald, he needs to implement that same game plan he's been doing for so many years, which is, back to what you're saying, grind. And by grind, I mean take him down and grind him on the floor and get a unanimous decision, because I don't see you beating Rory McDonald by TKO or by submission. It's going to be a unanimous decision, and I believe John Fitch might take this one. But we'll talk further into it once it gets here. It's back in April,
good.
So we
still got plenty of time. We just want to do a pretty brief recap on what happened on UFC on ESPN. One, it was the first ESPN first ESPN and UFC merge. It was the first fight that the UFC actually did under ESPN. That's what I meant to say. Yeah. It was set in Brooklyn. It was the Barclays Center. So everything had everything riding for this card. And I would tell you the preliminaries, just to run real fast to the preliminaries, I found that to be amazing. You could have. I was really against not having Cerrone versus Hernandez fight in the main card. But it could have not worked out any better to get you to subscribe to ESPN.
They knew what they were doing with that fight.
ESPN something. What's the ESPN 1 or something?
1, right.
It was ESPN 1, and really getting you into that. Cerrone continues to show that you're gonna put somebody young in front of him. He's gonna find a way to devour that fight.
Yeah, normally we talk about the main card, but back to what you're saying, is just it was such an impressive starter before the actual ESPN event that made it such a fucking amazing fight. Because he took a big win, Donald Cerrone, he's now asking for Conor McGregor, and Conor McGregor wants to fight him. I believe it's a better fight for Conor McGregor to go back into the UFC, especially as a lightweight bout, and get that big paycheck that they both Cerrone would love, obviously, and Conor McGregor as well.
Okay, so we're gonna go shoot straight into the main card. the original fight set for the first fight of the night for the main event was Glover Teixeira versus Ion Culata or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. Ion Culata ended up dropping out. Something happened with injuries.
Right.
So Carl Robinson took over.
It was a last minute fight replacement in that case. Sorry, but it was a very quick submission. Glover Teixeira threw some punches, grabbed him, threw him on the floor, and submitted him, as Glover Teixeira should at this point in his career. His stand-up game he's still very strong. He still has a really good right hand. However, his speed is no longer there. So by implementing his wrestling and bringing him down to the floor, his jiu-jitsu just pretty much took over as he's a black belt in Brazil.
Hopefully that's a wake-up call for Glover Teixeira. He realizes that he's people are not getting any older. People are getting younger going into that federation. He needs to keep up with these young guys. And, Dana always talks about this is a young man's sport. It's a young man's sport. Glover Teixeira, that was a must-win for him. It could have not worked out best for him. And it's a great look for Carl Robinson, who just took the fight last minute as well.
Right, I agree.
Next fight, we had Rachel
Ostrovich
versus Paige VanZant.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, man, you're rooting for really the underdog, which was Rachel, because she's 4-4 in her weight class, and she just came out of some abuse that happened with her ex-husband, or not ex-husband, actually her actual husband, and there was so much that was writing for her, and there was so much support.
It meant more to her.
To Rachel, yeah. I do feel like it was more, but we forgot that Paige VanZant has been injured, and she's really eager to come back. And she did what she does best. It's confused the fighter. The first round, Rachel really implemented her wrestling and did a great job in her wrestling. Took her down several times.
I thought she had the upper hand going into the fight.
The first round. Yeah. I'll tell you what worked out phenomenal. It's Paige VanZant's corner. It's so well put to her. You're a better submission artist. Figure a way to get behind her. And exactly what they were telling her, she literally went in there and did exactly what she did in corner, rear naked choke.
No, it wasn't a rear naked choke.
It was a rear naked choke.
No, she snapped her arm.
Oh shit! For real?
Mm-hmm. He got her. But anyways, back to what you're saying. Yeah, great corner, telling her to.
Before then, because you're 100%.
120%.
Shit.
So they got so she got her, and it popped her arm. You could tell it popped her arm. Good thing it didn't fracture it fully. I'm pretty sure they were able to put it back because she had a sling.
She had a sling. Yeah.
But so there was no major fracture down the middle of anything. So, but great submission for Paige VanZant. Tremendous fight coming back from her injury, and she hasn't fought in a while. We haven't seen her in the octagon, so. Back on top for her, and looking forward to see who they're gonna put her up against.
I totally agree. Next fight we had Joseph Benavidez versus Dustin Ortiz.
Yeah, another one that Dustin Ortiz coming into this fight, there was a lot of riding on him. There's a big hype on the kid. He's an amazing fighter, but a veteran, a true veteran like Joseph Benavidez, who's been putting work for so many years now, came in and showed why he deserves the title against who. We'll talk about it later, but he deserves a title shot, plain and simple, and just dominated him all 3 rounds, and he ended up taking the fight. 29-28 was the scorecard down the middle, and tremendous performance by Joseph Benavidez.
When you let someone like Benavidez really take the upper hand in the card, and he figures you out, he's a veteran, and he's such a technical fighter. There was a small part where it was so well designed, and you find someone like Dustin Ortiz who's extremely fast. Ortiz threw one right hand, and Benavidez was all over that takedown. I mean, it's so well put together by Benavidez, and you could see even someone who's such a vet is still growing in that sport. It's so impressive. An impressive victory. It wasn't a boring fight, even though it went to decision, which was probably one of the highlights of the day, which is a great thing, especially with fights that are going into decision. Next fight, we had Gregor Gillespie fighting versus Yancy Medeiros.
Unfortunately, Medeiros, he really looked like a real amateur in that fight. Gillespie just completely took over every single round to the point where Jancy could not take it anymore and decided to knock him out in the second round, if I'm not mistaken. Correct?
It was a second round knockout. but it shows people that Gillespie is the truth. Gillespie's yet to lose a fight, man.
Yeah.
Gillespie is he's literally one fight away from being a co-main event.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, this is he was at the third in the card, which is really good, and against a guy like Yancey, who always comes out of the, he loves to take a good punishment before giving you the best punishment, and unfortunately he could not get into the rhythm, and Gillespie never stopped.
It speaks volumes of who Gillespie is.
Absolutely, man, and congratulations to Gillespie. Out of all the fighters in that card, I'm looking forward to seeing him fight next.
I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah. Really, really impressive. And when you beat someone like Yancey, who's really, every time you see him fight, he's well prepared. Yeah. He had no chance. And to make someone of that caliber look like an amateur going into a fight is really impressive.
Yeah, I don't know how many fights like this Yancey could really take before they either cut him or he decides that he might just hang up the gloves.
Next fight, which was a total fucking bummer. We had Alan Crowder versus Greg Hardy.
Yeah.
There's not much to say about this fight. This was a disqualification for Greg Hardy, who ended up kneeing him while he was one of his hands was down on the ground and both his knees were on the ground, and he threw a right knee to the face, and it was so clear, it was so bright and day. Greg Hardy says that he wasn't done intentionally. This is just part of the fight. I can see when your adrenaline is going, but then again, you don't make amateurs fighters who haven't been in the octagon for so long, make them co-main events.
I agree with you 100%.
And then it makes you look and go, hold on a fucking second. Did we just put Cerrone at the main card of the preliminaries and not put him in the co-main event, which he should have been the co-main event to this fight because it's Donald fucking Cerrone?
Yeah.
It shows you that the UFC is there for views, it's not there for fairness. And that's what bothers most of the fight. And I love what Brandon Sharp said about this fight, and I'll make it really short. He said, you don't take a full course meal and put him in with fast food restaurant. You just don't do it. And it's the perfect example why you don't do that. A disaster of a fight. And what bothers me is that, what are you going to do with Hardy now? You took somebody who was really on the come up and could have continued to knock out these big, semi-big fighters. Now he's going to be lost somewhere in the preliminaries.
You're going to have to put him all the way down in the preliminary. He needs to work his way back up. I believe that there's a lot of people that don't come from an amateur background in this sport. They go directly into the Ultimate Fighter or Fighting a Fighter, whatever the fuck Dana White does. And they start to just knock people out constantly, back to back to back, and they get so comfortable in their feet that once they never tasted defeat, they never took a good shot. So once you get into the UFC, it plays out exactly how it played out there. A guy that couldn't take anymore, so he didn't know what the hell to do. His back is against the wall, so he's like, "Oh, let me do something." It shows how amateur Greg Hardy was to be put into that card, like, back to what you're saying, and now he needs to go all the way back down to the prelims and see what we could get out of him.
And that falls on Dana, bro. That falls on Dana. He pressured this fight to happen so much, and it backfired so much on him. And then one of the biggest surprises and things the way they worked out, Henry Cejudo ends up fighting T.J. Dillashaw.
No.
And I want to say something.
Oh God!
In the last podcast. You were very quick to say how T.J. Dillashaw was faster than Henry Cejudo. And as soon as this fight happens, the first thing I said is, do you forget this Henry Cejudo fought versus Demetrius Johnson? And even though I thought he lost that fight, he kept the pace that someone like Demetrius Johnson brought to the table.
Yeah, this is the reason why I said that. I said that because I didn't see the best Demetrius Johnson in that octagon when he fought against Henry Cejudo. He didn't look as quick to me as I'm so used to seeing him bouncing left and right. And then seeing a guy like Dillashaw, the way that he put work on Dominic Cruz and how he put work on Cody Garbrandt twice, and you start to see the high pace between Cody and T.J. Dillashaw, and I thought to myself, damn, T.J. Dillashaw is that much quicker than Cody Garbrandt, and that's how I picture Henry Cejudo, more like a Cody Garbrandt as far as speed goes. With that being said,
you were wrong.
He obviously proved me wrong, but also let's really talk about how it was a short stoppage. It wasn't meant to be cut off that quick. Talk to any experts you want to; they're gonna tell you that it was a little too early stoppage. But all credits to Henry Cejudo, a tremendous fucking fighter, and these are the guys that come like from Olympic backgrounds where they say, "I'm gonna fucking win," and they don't see anything that could possibly go wrong. Their game plan is win, win, win. And that's exactly what he showed in the octagon. And I believe maybe in the later rounds he could have probably taken out TJ Dillashaw.
So I think if that round if they would have really given TJ Dillashaw the actual respect that he needed, I really felt like it was an early stoppage. I do believe Henry Cejudo would have knocked him out. If depending on what view you're watching this fight, keep in mind the camera is really seeing it from a specific angle. If you look at the angle that the referee is looking at it, TJ was taking some big hits, man. Yeah. And it's not like he was taking just regular hits. Like, he got hit back to back that stumbled him to the point where, there was no coming back from that, I felt. And honestly, I felt like Henry Cejudo, the wrestler Henry Cejudo, would have found a way to just pin him down and beat the Bojangles out of him. And I think the referee, as much as people want to criticize, saved a couple of years of TJ Dillashaw's life. That's my personal opinion. But it also shows you don't talk shit about somebody else's weight class, walk into the weight class and then get washed up. Yeah. And that's something that is really important into moving forward if they're going to get rid of that weight class. There's still fights that need to be made in that weight class, which now we can actually say Benavidez is the up and guy first contender, I should say, for the belt for Henry Cejudo.
I agree.
And that's a fight to be seen. Power versus skill is the way I really like to put it. But Henry Cejudo in this fight, he's meant for this limelight, which I think is extremely important for someone like Henry Cejudo.
And not only for Henry Cejudo, but for that weight class. Because remember, we had a guy like Demetrius Johnson who was there sweeping that whole division and could not get a freaking spotlight. But now all the spotlights on Henry Cejudo, I think he has. I don't know. He has more of a presence that the UFC loves, and they're gonna ride with him. And because of that, there's a possibility that weight class does not get shut down, and they're gonna continue on with that, especially with Joseph Benavidez being next.
There's so many things they could do with that weight class.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyways, guys, we'll catch you guys next week like we usually do. This was a little bit longer rant, but it needed to be said.
Yeah.
All right, guys, it's been a pleasure.
Peace.